Hello everyone, Dr. Mohon-Doyle here. It is time to begin thinking about the argument paper, the major project for this class. Writing a big paper can be daunting, but if you start early and break it into smaller tasks, it can become more manageable. For that reason, you will complete several pre-writing activities over the next few weeks. Your first activity will be to complete a topic brainstorm and form your thesis. This video lecture will offer you some advice and a template to aid you in these tasks. Anytime you are given an assignment, you should read through it carefully several times and identify the requirements. When it comes to an argument assignment, here are a few questions to consider as you read. While they may seem obvious, they are questions that I get in my email every semester. Does the assignment prompt dictate what you must write about? If not, you'll have to choose your own topic based on what is appropriate for the class and what you are interested in exploring more on your own. If the topic is given, then you will want to make sure that you address all aspects of the topic dictated by the prompt. For our argument assignment, the prompt asks you to answer 3 questions. What do you think a brighter tomorrow means? Do you think that we, humanity, can achieve a brighter tomorrow, and why or why not? You need to be aware of how long the paper should be. Some professors prefer word count, some prefer page count. If they use word count, only the text of the essay will count towards word count, not the heading or the works cited or reference page. If they use page count, make sure that you follow their specific formatting guidelines, such as font size and style, as well as margin width. For this paper, I'm looking for 750 to 1,000 words. My rule is that you can always go over word count, but you cannot go under, and don't double it. If sources are required, how many sources should be used, and is any additional research required? Our assignment requires you to use at least 4 of the readings from class, so you can use a psalm for the wild build or any of the articles that we've read this semester. You may also use the articles your classmates presented on in their article PPT presentations. I specifically do not want you to do additional research beyond that. You need to know when the assignment is due and if there are any checkpoints in the process before the final. For our paper, you will be completing required pre-writing activities, submitting a draft, and peer reviewing your classmates' drafts. You need to mark in your schedule when each of these stages is due so you don't miss out on helpful feedback and points towards the final. And finally, you also want to look for how the assignment will be graded. Most professors will include a grading rubric that breaks down the assignment and assigns points to each of the requirements. If a professor does not provide a rubric, look for the information in the assignment sheet and make a checklist of the requirements. You will likely be graded on each of these. You can also ask the professor about their approach to grading. Here is the grading rubric for your argument paper. The rubric can also be found on the assignment sheet. Note that 30 points will come from completing each of the pre-writing stages. The remaining 70 points are broken down to highlight the major requirements and skills covered throughout the semester, such as using specific examples from your personal experience and giving attribution to readings done from class, as well as paragraphing and grammar. Once you have reviewed the assignment sheet and feel comfortable with the requirements, begin your planning by looking back over the course materials. Your notes and other writing done throughout the semester can give you ideas for claims you can make. For this assignment, it is okay to pull those ideas out and develop them more in your argument. Additionally, skimming over the readings can remind you of some of the subjects that we've discussed and arguments other authors have made about the topic of a brighter tomorrow. You can start to pick out quotes or data you could use to support your claims. If you make notes separately, be sure to provide attributions so you do not forget where the information came from. As with other writing we have done in this class, it is okay to use I in this paper. In fact, you and your ideas should be a major element in your own writing. Always choose a topic or stance that you care about or feel strongly about. Don't choose what seems easiest. I've had plenty of students in the past who did, and they always complained that they found the assignment boring and lost interest halfway through. Their grade reflected their lack of interest. If you care about something, you are more curious about it, and curiosity makes you more willing to engage with your topic, think through ideas, and find the strongest sources to support your claims. Don't forget to bring your own knowledge. Over your lifetime, you've had jobs, conversations, assignments, etc. that have built up your knowledge base beyond what is covered in class. Maybe you know something about wind energy because you read about it in high school. Maybe you know something about advances in eco-friendly building materials because you and a friend are in construction. Maybe you read an article 5 years ago for fun that talked about how people have tried to help improve the lives of others. This is a relevant and legitimate pool of knowledge. Similarly, your personal hands-on experience can serve as examples to support your claims. Do you have solar panels on your roof helping with your electric bills? Have you tried vertical farming on a smaller scale? When you start brainstorming for your paper, it can be a good idea to consider multiple perspectives before you choose your specific stance. If an assignment prompt requires you to choose a side of the argument to defend, try arguing both positions. In this case, argue for a brighter tomorrow being achievable, and then against it being achievable. This exercise will allow you to see what arguments are possible, which ones you agree with, and which side has the stronger evidence. It is also possible that you start this exercise certain that you will argue from one perspective, only to realize that you actually agree with the other more once you've laid out all of the information. Some argument topics are complex. It can be good to break the topic down into its component parts so you can decide which ones you think are the most important and should be highlighted in your paper. Additionally, understanding and including other perspectives on the argument can actually strengthen your paper because you can explain why you believe those perspectives are flawed. It shows that you've considered them carefully, building your credibility as an expert on the topic, and that you have thoughtful responses to them rather than just attacks. As I mentioned on the previous slide, topics are complex. It may be difficult to argue every point in one paper, particularly one that is only 1,000 words. For example, the articles we've read for class cover everything from AI to animal restoration projects. That's a lot of ground. Trying to cover all of it will likely lead to a thin, strung-out paper. You want to narrow your focus so you can delve into your claims more deeply. To do this, choose the parts that are connected by some common thread. Technology is an obvious thread, but we've also talked about equity or environmental improvements. You can probably think of a few others. Any of these would narrow your argument enough to make it a little more interesting. You could also narrow to a single topic and then split that into smaller points. Within the scope of technology, you could write a whole paper about AI threatening a brighter tomorrow, or a paper about how food technologies will ensure a brighter tomorrow. Part of your first pre-writing assignment for this paper will be to complete this brainstorming activity. The questions will also be in the assignment folder where you will submit your response. Your response to these brainstorming questions doesn't have to be pretty. This is just a way to get some early ideas on paper and to put you in the right headspace to think about your argument. Once you start formally thinking about the major questions, you'll likely find yourself coming up with ideas as you go about your daily business. When I start a project, I tend to come up with my best ideas while watching TV or walking across campus. I do suggest keeping a space on your phone or using a notebook to record any ideas that come to you, or you will forget that you had them. In addition to the brainstorming activity, you will also write your initial thesis statement. As you review the course materials and begin writing the paper, this thesis statement may change. However, it is good to start somewhere. The thesis statement is the roadmap of the essay. It usually shows up at the end of the introduction paragraph and lets the reader know what the paper will be about. An effective thesis statement has 3 parts: the claim, the evidence, and the warrant. The claim is your specific stance on the topic. It must be debatable, meaning someone somewhere has to disagree with your stance. It must also be an actual statement. No questions allowed. Do not waffle. The evidence is where you outline how you plan to support your claim in the paper. You don't want to give everything away, but you should hint at the main points that you'll be making. The standard is to list 2 to 4 major points that will be expanded on in the body of the paper. Each of these points should have at least 1 corresponding paragraph in the paper. If a point is complex enough, it may have 2. The warrant is a little weird. In order for the reader to connect your evidence to your claim and agree with your arguments, you need to assume that you have a shared set of common values. For example, if you say that a brighter tomorrow is possible because we're putting a lot of effort into improving renewable energy, you have to assume that your audience agrees that renewable energy is a good method of producing energy, and that decreasing greenhouse gases is an improvement. Most of the time, the warrant is not stated out loud. Instead, you just assume it's true. However, if you think your audience disagrees with you, then you may have to provide more evidence to bring them to your side. For this paper, a straightforward thesis would look something like this. A brighter tomorrow is or is not achievable, depending on what stance you want to take, because X, Y, and Z reasons. These reasons could be specific innovations or ideas that you've pulled from the readings and your experience. Like I said earlier, you don't want to give it all away, so you would not list articles here or specific project names such as Resolve. Instead, you might say, brighter tomorrow is achievable because we're working to restore animal populations. Later in your paper, you would discuss the specific example of Resolve as an organization that is doing this. I have had students in the past who did not want to choose a side because they thought that there were too many variables to predict the future. So I am offering you this optional edition of, however, we will have to address A first, where A is some issue that you see as being a major challenge to achieving a brighter tomorrow. If you use this, you'll need to have a paragraph in your paper addressing this challenge. This template is not the only way to phrase your thesis statement. However, it does ensure that you meet all the requirements of an effective thesis, so start by using it first. Once you have more of your paper done, you can revise it to flow better with your style. If you have any questions about this assignment or the pre-writing, please contact me at mohondoylek@apsu.edu.